I want to take you back to 1990. 1990, there was a George Bush in the White House. The Soviet Union was still around. The Edmonton Oilers had won their 5th Stanley Cup that year. And I had hair. It was 22, I had very long hair. I was tree planting in northern British Columbia. You could probably describe me as a hippie capitalist, because that's sort of what I am, especially when I had hair. That was the summer of 1990. That was the context of that year. And in southern British Columbia, I was tree planting in northern British Columbia, getting in shape, running up hills and mountains and down them again, planting spruce and pine. But in southern British Columbia, there was a group of investors that were trying to put together a proposal for a ski hill in southern British Columbia, about 50 kilometers from Invermere. You may have been down in the southeast Kootenays. It's a beautiful area. Now, this group of investors thought at the time this was a reasonable proposition. There are a lot of mountains in British Columbia, lots of hills, lots of forest. And they were going to propose, they did propose, to build a ski hill on the site of an old sawmill in a valley now known as the Jumbo Valley. It was the Jumbo ski proposal, ski resort. And initially had some success. The province in 1990 said, yes, we think this is a good idea. Go ahead, put in your application formally. Several years later, the BC NDP Premier, Mike Harcourt, said this is exactly the kind of development we need in British Columbia. So they had some initial positive signals from the government and from others in the area. Over the course of the 1990s, they do their due diligence, right? They get their permits, they do the environmental checks, the process, they go through all that. They dot their I's, they cross their T's, they do the environmental assessments, they do the stakeholder meetings. At one point, they have 14 of 18 major stakeholders on board with them, including a First Nation nearby. Now, they also have some roadblocks that start to appear, literally in some cases, in the valley where they want to put the ski hill up, but also some, you could say, less than honest approaches to their development proposal. So for example, in the mid-1990s, they find out some civil servants in Victoria are apparently conspiring with some people, or they hear rumors of this, conspiring with some people that don't want the development to go ahead. So they do a Freedom of Information request to the Ministry of the Environment. And what they receive back are some memos, boxes actually of documents, but some memos, one in particular, which kind of sticks out from one civil servant to another saying, this is actually a great development, there's nothing wrong with it. We can't really deny it on any reasonable grounds. Nonetheless, let's see if we can make the developer spend a lot more of their money and run out this process, try and kill this project. This is inside the Ministry of the Environment. So this is what they're dealing with. And from there, remember they started in 1990, this only gets worse. Right? There's some judicial interventions, court interventions they have to deal with from some groups opposed to the development. All the stuff that people are used to these days when they see developments come up, a proposal. And again, remember, this is for a ski hill. Right? I grew up skiing on Big White and Last Mountain in Kelowna, British Columbia. I don't know how long those mountains took to come to fruition in terms of the development, but I'm going to guess it was not as long as this particular proposal is still taking today. So I'm going to jump ahead to 2014. After all the back and forth, the court battles, the protests, the injunctions, after getting every possible permit locally and provincially that you need, and working with every stakeholder you possibly can, by 2014, Glacier Resorts, the proponents of the Jumbo Ski Resort, finally get an environmental okay, the development permit in 2014 where they can start construction, 24 years after they started. So it's in the summer of 2014 where they start to put some concrete pads down where the day lodge is going to be and some other facilities for this resort town that's going to be built in addition to the ski hill. So this is August or September. They get an early snowfall in September 2014. Now, they still keep trying to work as much as they can to get some stuff up and running, some evidence of construction on the ground, because the permit apparently, it's a provincial permit, development permit, expires in November, and you have to show substantial progress. I'm not a lawyer, but there's something to that term, I guess, and I may not have it exactly correct, but they have to show substantial progress in terms of getting this done. Otherwise, the permit would have to be extended, and that's not guaranteed. While it snows in September, they do some of this work, as I mentioned. But they don't get enough progress to satisfy the provincial environment minister, who in November says, I'm sorry, you're going to have to, quote, start from scratch, unquote.